a dick back then and be like, yeah, she's a total, like, admit that he sucked then and, like, just allowed her to walk all over him then, or he had to stick by his guns and be like, no, she's awesome, and give her, and try to rehab her and try to be her savior, and he's going with option B.
You think he's trying to rehab her? Yeah. Like, do you not? No, of course I do. Of course I do. But like, so does he not give a shit how this is going to look?
No, like, I feel like he felt like he had two options because he had already made her out to be a good person. So he either had to change his mind and then tell everyone he changed his mind, which is hard to do, or be like, no, I was right all along, and then try to rehab her in everybody else's mind.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that, what do you think is going to come in? We haven't even finished reading part one here. And by the way, for the YouTube people just coming in now, I'm doing a Twitter Spaces right now, but I realize it's weird because like my Twitter audience and my YouTube audience, my Facebook audience, they're all separate. So what we're reading right now is a Timcast journalist, quote unquote, Shane Cashman, put out a 20,000 word part one story on Eliza Bleu. We're like a quarter of the way done with it, and nothing has fucking happened. It's like I'm gonna bring it up on the big screen if you guys want to read along with me, and I'll post it in the comments. But go ahead.
That's another thing, like part 1 of 4. Like,
yeah,
you're just trying to you're desperate for clicks, and like you're super desperate because you know nobody wants the pro Eliza story.
That nobody. Oh, right. Okay, so like he made it seem like, how am I going to write this? Am I going to grill her? You'll have to find out for part 1. Tune into part 1, and then you'll sit on this site. And while I'm sitting on the site, keep in mind, like how these websites work, like they're data mining you. Like that's just how the internet works. I recognize that. No shame in the game. I don't see any ads on here. I will say that I do not see any ads. So I'm not getting like bombarded with anything like that. But like when you're on someone's site, like they're winning, like they got you. So I'm on their site. I'm reading this shit because I'm interested in it. And then they're like, you have to spend 20 minutes. When I first saw this, I'm like, I ain't got time to read this. This is not 1995. I mean, you're from that generation, Lauren. Do people read shit this long? 20,000 word stories?
Oh my God, no. I one time wrote a story for a paper and it was 5,000 words. And they were like, we want 20% of that.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Like who's going to read all this shit? I mean, so it goes on. Let me read. So let me read some more from this, this nonsense that I'm reading. Okay. Let's see where I was. So he's like, I don't like, and how about all the references to am I alone in this world that like, this isn't like a writer should not insert himself this much in a story? Like nobody cares about you.
I thought that was like a journal. I guess he didn't go to journalism school, but I thought that was like day 1 of journalism school. Try not to be the story.
Yeah, but again, this is not. And again, it's not traditional journalism, and that's fine. But you want to get to the point. Like readers don't have time for this shit. Like it's not all about you in the picture you're painting here.
The most important thing is he really did not get to any of the things anyone cared about.
Exactly.
For instance, the point that you pointed out about Babylon B. Why?
Yeah.
Why did they cancel?
Right.
Even if she ask the question, even if she lies, I want to know what her answer is.
You're right. And he doesn't do that. I mean, that's what people want to. That was the first interesting thing I read in here, that the Babylon be canceled. Let's talk about why. Why is he not mentioning the quartering? Apparently, people are telling me that thread that they're talking about, the viral thread, came from the quartering. Mm-hmm. Why won't he say their name?
He doesn't want to draw attention to them because they're like the main ones pointing out that Eliza is trouble.
Yeah. You know what?
He's trying to rehab her.
I see this chick in I'm going to bring this woman on. Her name's Farron. She goes by Farron Balance. I don't know if that's a real name. I started following her during this whole thing. She's been very good with this. So I'm going to let you go, Lauren. And I'm going to bring her on. Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Hello. Is this fair and balanced?
This is. I want to thank you so much for all of your reporting on this as well and picking up this story. It's been so hard trying to get people to just look at this story because the fact that you're questioning a human trafficking survivor alone is very controversial when people, mind you, have been trapped or have been questioning her for years at this point. It finally all came to fruition. So thanks for having me on.
No problem. So have you been, I'm new to Eliza. Have you been following her for a while?
So I normally am a investigative journalist, and I more cover politics in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
And I really didn't care anything about her as far as her story or whatnot until she started censoring people.
Yes, me too.
That's when I had a big problem, because I was like, wait a minute, what's going on with this chick? Who does she know? How does she know these people? And that's kind of how it all started. And then as you just start, literally, as you start peeling the onion over and over, I mean, it's like literally, I mean, I'm working on this documentary, and still there's new things coming out when I'm getting ready to release it, like next week. You know, like there's just something over and over and over again. And that's the thing is with this Shane Cashman story, you know, the first part that really troubled me is they highlight it as gonzo journalism.
What do you mean is gonzo journalism?
Okay, so if you guys know Hunter S. Thompson, to wherever his ashes are right now that were shot out of a cannon, they are literally turning in the atmosphere right now. Because gonzo journalism is supposed to be, it's a form of journalism that Hunter S. Thompson created when he infiltrated basically the Hells Angels.
Okay.
And the whole thing is supposed to be about, like, the way that he made it is, here I'm a good guy. I'm infiltrating a motorcycle club. You all know that I'm the good guy, but I'm going to tell you, like, how I basically turned to the dark side. Okay. And it's all first person. It reads very much like a fiction novel, but it's nonfiction. When they call this gonzo journalism, and that's why you see so much of I, as your co-host said, Lauren. Yeah. As we know in journalism 101, the story is never about you. Right. I was very perturbed at the way that they called it gonzo journalism, and then I was like, oh, I get it. They're trying to make it like a fluff piece, but in the eyes of Shane, in the sense of, well, she seems really nice. Well, if you go to any cop that talks to anybody in prison, everybody's nice. That's true, exactly. You know, everybody's nice. Right. But they all got in there for some reason, right? Right. And so that's where I was like, oh, I get it. But again, Hunter S. Thompson, if you've ever seen Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, a number of his other movies and whatnot, a friend of mine was a very close personal assistant of Hunter S. Thompson's. It's a definite form of journalism in the sense of, I know I'm getting into the wrong crowd, but here's my personal story of how, like, I developed Stockholm Syndrome kind of a thing. Right. But this is not it. This is not it at all.
What's the difference?
He acts like Eliza Bleu is totally fine, when Hunter S. Thompson was like, the Hells Angels are basically like the devil.
Right. And I feel like when I read his whole story, I'm like a quarter of the way through it. I still don't even, he's just doing this whole like, well, here's this side and here's this side. I haven't really reached my conclusion yet. What will I think in the next episode? You'll have to stay tuned and read part 2 to figure out what my conclusion is about this. It's like, dude, get to the point. Like,
exactly.
People don't have time for this shit.
Whereas Hunter S. Thompson, it was more like, we all know they're evil. I'm going to tell you how I kind of morphed. I'm going to tell you how I morphed into thinking like them. And stay tuned for the next episode where I'm going to do some crazy shit and you're not going to believe that I ever did that kind of stuff.
Right.
Nothing near this kind of article written whatsoever.
I mean, they did 3 paragraphs on the Tesla code. I'm like, you have to be kidding me. I don't give a shit. Nobody cares about the Tesla code. Get to the point. And the one interesting thing he said in there about the Babylon Bee, it's like, they just jump right over it. I'm like, that's what I want to know. I didn't know that before reading this, that the Babylon Bee canceled on her. Tell me more about that. But they just don't. It's
and you're also starting to see too, like, and this is the part where I think, you know, she literally puts out tweets that tries to address what we're all thinking, but only confirms what we're thinking. For example, before this article even came out, she's like, I can't wait to collab with Ye.
Yeah,
and we're like, all right, bitch, like, cool. And then this article comes out, and we're like, oh, you're getting ready to collab with Kanye West. Like, do you know that he hates the Jews? Like, first of all, number one. And number two, like, then she's like, Shane is an amazing person. I haven't seen the article yet, though. And you're like, but wait a minute. You put out how you want to collab with Ye. Like,
I don't believe that for a second that she hasn't read the article. Don't believe that for a second.
Exactly. And that's where you're seeing all of this stuff. And then, like, the next part where she talks about, you know, there's this clip going around Twitter where she talks about how if it was up to a utopian community and it was an underage child.
Oh, everyone's seen that one.
Everyone's seen the pedo video.
Yep.
And granted, I mean, I got shit for it tonight where you called her a pedophile. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Not a pedophile, a pedo apologist.
Yes.
Excuse
a
me.
utopian pedophile.
Yeah, exactly.
Just in utopia.
And that's where, like, people are starting to realize. And so now she's putting out, like, this whole thing, like, you don't understand the context and you don't understand the podcast. It's like, there's not that much to consider, okay? I'm a Catholic. Priests diddled kids, okay?
Good point.
They either did it or they didn't. And I'm a Catholic and I can say that, okay? Like, you're not that far off, bitch.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's one of these things, like, where you just look at a lot of what she says and you're just like, are you hearing the words that come out of your mouth? And that's where you realize, like, the grip is so strong. Like, she could literally go from a BLM activist march and be like, yep, BLM, I'm here for you. And then turn around, walk across the street, go to a KKK rally and tell them what they need to hear too.
Whatever gets her attention. Whatever gets her attention, she'll do. Mm-hmm. And what's amazing me is that, you know, Tim's whole brand is like, we are the people that don't belong to either side, and we're not controlled by corporate journalism. And we tell the truth. I mean, that's why I admired Tim when he was on with Joe Rogan, is that, you know, Rogan fucked up with Jack Dorsey the first time. His fans gave it to him. And he's like, I want to redo. And I'm going to bring Tim on because Tim knows more about this shit. And I'm going to bring Jack Dorsey back. And Tim grilled the shit out of them. And it was perfect.
100%.
Now the same thing is happening here, where, you know, he fucked up the first time. The show is bad. Objectively, everyone says that who saw it. Right. And then, but all his fans are clamoring. And instead of responding to it, it's just ignoring it. Do you think this is hurting his reputation?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I used to love Tim. I mean, like, especially from his Occupy Wall Street days. And then what made me love him even more was during that time of the Joe Rogan Twitter with the Jack Dorsey and Vijaya Gotti when they were on the podcast together. And he was just...
It was great.
He had so many... I mean, because I was there like, get him.
You couldn't have brought somebody better than him.
Right. And he was so structured in his sentencing and the way that he questioned.
Oh, it was perfect.
Whereas I would have been like, are you really, bitch? Really, bitch?
Yeah, I would have gone off on tangents. He just stayed focused and it was great.
100%. Right. And so, like, I see him now and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, why? You know, and granted, yes, we understand that his booker/producer, Cassandra, is...
Well, let's talk about that. So I like, Cassandra's actually the one that got me on the show recently. She's been following the blog for years. And I haven't talked to her about this. What do you, how do you feel about her in this whole story?
So I know she hates me.
Okay.
She hates me. But really it was because, you know, I questioned her because I worked for an international news network. I had my own primetime show, and I had producers that were bookers and all that other stuff. And when things would come up, like, for example, you know, the whole shooting of, not the shooting, when it came to the George Floyd protests and all that other stuff, like, I was like, we got to get Benjamin Crump on, which was the lawyer for the Floyd family.
I know Crump.
Same with Breonna Taylor. Anytime that kind of stuff came up, it was like, hey, whatever we had today, we got to move people around and we got to, you know, bring on the guest of when things are timely. And when I asked her about my friend, Brittany Venti, I was like, hey, why don't you bring Brittany on? And it was like, no, thanks. And I was like, well, why not? Like, this is the story of today. Right. Sorry, we can't because we're all booked up. And I go, well, and this is where she didn't like it because I called her out. I said, well, you were able to bring on Crowder really quick when all of that stuff heated up. it happened on a Thursday. You were able to bring him on.
And by the way, wasn't Crowder, doesn't that qualify as drama? If that's not drama, then what is? We don't do drama, but that was the biggest.
Aiden, please.
It's like that is drama, right?
Too many questions.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like we're getting in. You're going to host a feud about like which conservative was mad about a contract that doesn't affect any of us. It's like, but we don't do drama. Okay.
How dare you signify as drama? That's culture.
Yes,
that's
it's
culture.
Hard hitting stuff.
Yeah. Or to which that's what they told me.
Oh, really?
So I said, I was like, you were able to bring Crowder on really quick. Like, you can't move people around. And she was like, guess that's why I'm not your producer. And I was like, you're right, because you would have been fired.
I did think it was unfair for them to bring up the porn, revenge porn, whatever. I think that's low. They brought that has nothing to do with anything.
I don't condone that either. It's one of these things. Like when people put that out there, it's like just don't get in the.
You're killing your point. You don't need. You can make your point without doing that.
Right, and the point that I made though is I was just like, hey, you should be booking these people and you're not. And it's clearly because you have an ulterior motive. And then she turned around though and told people that I said that she should get fired. And I was like, that's not what I said at all. I said, if you were my producer, you would be fired because you're putting your own bias in front of booking a guest. And that's not cool. And then she called me the dollar store Nancy Grace.
Oh, that's you? Like, well, that's you? Oh, I didn't know that was you.
Me. And that's why I was like, well, at least give me Target. Target's like way better.
She deleted those tweets, right?
She eventually then deleted those tweets. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
She's mad. You're hot. You're cute.
No, like I said though, I mean, like dollar store, like fine, but like again, Target, like love their stuff way more. I was just, and mind you, then she ended up deleting all of that because she didn't end up, stumping the Daily Beast. And
how about that? The Daily Beast of all people got to this story first. I mean, that's embarrassing that for the conservative media, that a liberal media outlet came in here and just was like, well, this is interesting. Like these two conservative people going at it and exposing each other. I'm going to jump in this dumpster fire. Whereas every conservative media outlet is just ignoring this for the most part.
That's the saddest part, and also I see that Daniel Clancy's in here too. Daniel Clancy was a really big supporter of Eliza's and even put out a video of like, hey, you got to fix this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, can you just talk to the people and just, set them straight. And she basically was like, if you have any questions, go to the NCOSC legal team. And it was just like, wait, what? And here he's, an advocate along with her. And it's just like, wait, what? And you just see a lot of this stuff where a lot of people are like, oh my God, her PR team is so bad. And I'm like, no, I don't even think she has a PR team. I think this is actually all her.
I definitely think it's all her. She has no team at all. And that's almost the most impressive part about this is that she did this all by herself. This is she got Elon Musk's ear. That's impressive. I don't care. It's a lie, but it's quite the grift.
And when you look at her old tweets, I mean, even going all the way back to like Gerard Way, like where she would like
2011
into people's DMs.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
it's diabolical.
She knows how to get attention. I mean, think of all these people. I mean, how the fuck did she get on Steve Harvey's show? How the hell did that happen?
Oh, that I could tell you because I'm from Chicago.
Okay.
Basically, what they would do is she was probably with the modeling agency or like with the casting call. And they're like, hey, we need 3 girls to do like this tuck and dip role for 30 seconds. And they're like, oh, cool. She's got short blonde hair. And then we got the black girl and the Mexican girl. Here you go. That's it.
Okay.
She does have a very interesting look about her that I will tell you, just coming from that, having once been in the modeling and dancing world and stuff like that. She definitely is a different look that's going to stand out.
Right. Yeah, no, she definitely, she's noticeable with the haircut and all that stuff, the booty. Yeah, totally.
Right. So that's one of those things where that's just like a straight up casting call, where they have people come in. Like I was a morning anchor for Fox News at the time in South Bend, Indiana. And they had us go in with Steve Harvey to do a promo. And it was just kind of like, here, 30 seconds, go, and boom, you're done. So I mean, like, that kind of stuff happens really quick.
Mm-hmm.
so that to me, I was kind of like, okay, like that makes sense. Like I don't think anything really crazy of that. The music videos, though, I'm like, oh, that's a call. Like that's a casting call. You know, like that's different. Versus a 30-second, like, you know, booty dip, you know.
I would invite if Cassandra hears this or whatever, I can contact her, and I mean, she's more than welcome to come on here. I want people to speak for themselves. You know, I want people to be able to say. I do feel like everybody who works at Timcast, there must be some sort of order not to talk about this. Like, so I was on there a week and a half ago, and a lot of people in my position wouldn't fucking talk about this because they're like, well, don't you want to get the invite back? It's like, no, I'd rather not get the invite back if it means I have to like not talk about, if I have to sell my soul. Like, no, I'm not going to do that. I would hope that he would want this type of conversation, but like going in, I was actually talking to my driver about this. And I was like, I mentioned the Eliza Bleu thing, and I was really skeptical of her, and I thought it went poorly. And I kind of hinted like, can I bring this up on the show? And he's like, basically, no. Like you can't bring this up on the show at all. So I didn't, because I didn't want to cause controversy when I was there or anything like that. But now I kind of understand why. And it sucks. It's like finding out Santa's not real. Like, you know, I'm disappointed to see this.
Worse than that, it sounds like Santa's not real, and he also was trying to traffic all the elves.
No, not her. I'm talking about the Timcast. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're the ones that it's like, I'm disappointed to see that they're simping for this chick. Like, and my question is why? Like, what are you, like, you can afford to burn this bridge. You don't need a lot. Like, you don't need Eliza Bleu.
Why is Elon?
Because he's just a moron.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean,
thank you, Lauren.
Yeah. What did Lauren say? What was her?
Why is Elon being so weird about this? Like, why is he censoring people? Do you ever?
He's not. His freaking global trust and safety chick is Ella Irwin. She's the one doing it.
Well, and also, I mean, like, the reason why, as far as Tim, why he's not going to bring this up and stuff is because of Elon. God forbid you take down a human sex trafficking, quote, survivor who is big with Elon, who has put out there that I have a direct line to Elon. I mean, if you go back and look at all of her tweets, I mean, she definitely is not humble in any regards.
No.
Dr. Turtleboy, you should change your bio to sex trafficking survivor.
Oh God!
You could stop getting all of your Twitter stuff taken down.
I'm a sex trafficking survivor.
So is he. So is Aiden.
I danced for the Chicago Bulls, and they took multiple pictures of me. They even paid me to dance at every single game, but it was like they took the pictures of me and put them out there, especially like with the Chicago Tribune and stuff. I have it on my tweet of who I'm suing. And I mean, I'm a survivor as well. So it's good to be in a community of survivors.
Let me read. So I'm reading more of this, right? And I've got the part here where he gets to like, finally he's talking about her trafficking background finally. And it's just her repeating the same stuff that she says in every interview. I was 15 and I was whatever. I met him where I met him at a concert. Who was he? A photographer? Can you name him? I can't. Why?
Yeah, 15 or 16.
Yeah,
God,
it's changed. It's changed a lot of times. Yeah. And she goes, legal reasons. And then he goes, we're going to come back to that. I said, I knew she wasn't going to name names. She said as much to me on Timcast IRL. Like, why is that acceptable to you as a reporter? Like that, you know what I mean? Like, what I knew she's setting the tone here. She's telling me I'm not going to do this.
First of all, on the Timcast episode where you were literally, where she was gloating about him and then like telling all of this, like, you're such a great reporter with her fuck me eyes.
Yeah, she was.
That Timcast?
Yes, and the same one where she's like, and you can bring your, like, I don't know if he's married or she's like, you can bring your wife too. He. Like, basically, like, I realize that I look like a whore right now and I don't want to give the wrong impression here. So you can bring your wife too. I'm not going to give you a hand job. I swear to God. Like,
but if I can, I
will. She totally would. No doubt about that.
Exactly. It's okay with that.
Yeah, it's like, and then so he's just like you don't, legal reasons. Like, what are the legal, like, what legal like, why don't you grill her about that? You're a reporter. Your job, like, we could all know this right now. We know she's not answering these questions. You're there to get questions. And are you with me in the whole the fact that he's getting his room and board paid for essentially by her out there compromises his integrity immediately in the story?
Well, that 100%. But also, number two, I'll tell you this. So in the documentary that I'm releasing next week, one of the other investigative journalists on this with me, Damian Moore, he got a hold of her dad. Now, mind you, she has totally said that that is not her father. My dad, nobody in my family has ever run for governor or
lieutenant she said governor. It multiple times.
Right. Her father did in 2018. He ran against Bruce Rauner. I remember because my mom, of all people, was all for Jeannie Ives and was like, yeah, Jeannie Ives and Lieutenant Governor Rich Morthland. And now I look back and I'm like, oh God. Just remembering that time because I'm from Chicago. So that's the only reason that I know this. But besides the point, Damian Moore got a hold of her father and said, I will do an off-the-record interview as long as you get rid of your article. And his article is in the American Crime Journal. He has been looking into her since December 2021, ever since 𝗏𝗏𝗄�secret started coming out and asking her questions as far as why would you
who runs 𝗏𝗏𝗄�secret?
Gabe Hoffman.
Okay, I'm blocked by them. I have no fucking clue why. I had to read their tweets on another account just to read them. But okay, so he's.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, I don't know.
Next time.
I bet. Yeah, I mean, I tell whatever I did to offend them. I'm sorry. I like your shit. I'd like to read it. You know, like please unblock me.
Yeah. No, for sure. I'll bring you in next. I'll bring him in next time. But no, but yeah, like it's one of these things like where. And they were just asking questions like, hey, why aren't you going to name your abuser? If they're that bad and you want to protect people, why wouldn't you name them? I mean, that's what a lot of people do. And the fact that, you know, the father was like, I'll give you an off the record interview, but you have to take down your article. That's questionable to me. Right.
And how do you feel like reading more of this shit? Oh, first of all, Tim Pool is now trending on Twitter. So there's that like overall this. I mean, he has to notice that all this is going on, but he's playing it off like he's not. Like, what do you think he thinks of all this? Like, is this bugging him? Like, or does he think it's just going to go away? I mean, is that the plan?
That's what I think. I think he honestly thinks it's just going to go away. And that's the problem, though, is I feel like, you know, it's one thing, for example, like if this was Tucker Carlson, okay, let's just like in a regular world, if this was Tucker Carlson, this would have been gone in a week if he didn't address it. The problem is, though, is that Tim not only takes like, you know, contributions from online and all that stuff, but he's also in an online world where the more you try to look the other way, the more the people are going to try to shift your focus in that direction. And that's where I think that, especially when they try to shift your focus in a direction, after they've done all the research on it, and you're still saying, nope, and then you have one of your reporters do a puff piece on it.
Well, in fairness, we've only seen part 1. Maybe part 2 is going to be the part where he nails her. And I doubt.
Don't forget to click and subscribe to find out.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I've seen a lot of people, I know it's anecdotal, just say that like they're showing screenshots of them canceling their subscriptions. Like he has to see that. Doesn't that bother him as a businessman?
I mean, I would think so. But it's not going to really bother him until it's actually a good chunk of it.
Right. Yeah. It's probably not going to hurt his bottom line that much or whatever. Know? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this isn't like a Crowder situation where you lost like a good like 50 or so. Like you'd have to see half of them be gone in order to actually start looking at something. But then by that point, it's too late because people then already lose trust for you.
Yeah.
You know?
Now, did you read the whole story? Like, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't read the whole thing. I started reading it, and I'm like, did you read the whole thing? Like this part about her being on drugs and Kurt Cobain, and did you read all that? Like, I don't even know. Like, I'm just like, what? So, like, what is like? She was on. She's saying that she was. Her story is that.
You want to pick up where you left off and keep reading?
Not really, to be honest with you, because I'll be here all fucking night. It's like, but she's like,
I get it. You kind of, it makes you kind of want to throw up in your mouth a little bit. I get it.
Right. You know, and so like, I guess I'll read. Let me read some of it here. Right. So bear with me. So let's see. Where the fuck was I? Okay, the Tesla part. Okay, she's wearing a Tesla coat. Okay.
I feel like you should have like dramatic music behind you. But I know this is Twitter Spaces.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So, well, there was mostly small talk on our way to get food. We discussed her childhood, being homeschooled, and how she and her family, including her younger sister, had moved from the Quad Cities to Denver and back. As we took our seats at the truck stop diner, I was alerted by colleagues via text that some people have announced that her father's personal address, both home and office, when we're claiming to be on their film to film the location. I was going to be staying at her parents' house for the duration of my visit. It's like, again, he's making it about him. Like, oh, my life is in danger here because they're fucking putting her address out there. Are you reading Twitter? I asked, referring to the barrage of comments about her life. All the images, everyone who'd done anything with her had been getting tagged and everything too. Friends are telling me that my silence is making everything worse, she said. Right now, people don't even want to hear anything from me. There's literally nothing I could do or say. What could I say? You could say the name of the guy who trafficked you. That might be a good start. You know, nothing I do will appease everybody. Yes, there's lots of things you could do. If this is a legitimate story, you could back it up with something, but you can't.
If it's an illegitimate story, what could she do?
If it's an illegitimate story,
which it is,
yes.
It is illegitimate. So, like, what can she do? How?
Yeah, I guess that's a good question. How do you get out of this if you're her?
Yeah,
I guess.
Have we also discussed the fact that this was done in the beginning of January?
This story?
Yeah.
Wait, this is
what?
No, he said the 24th he started writing this. He says it's the 24th.
That's when he started writing it.
Okay.
He was there in the beginning of January.
Oh, he was?
Yeah. We were able, actually, all the internet sleuths, we were able to figure that out because I'm trying to remember, she was on the Timcast in mid-December. Wanted him to come out after the new year, she said. And I forget what tweet it was that was deleted or something. But it was basically that he was out there the first week of January. And that's why everyone was saying, that where she put out that picture of hi, where it's her and Shane.
Oh, that's from early January. Okay,
and
gotcha.
And then Tim was like, I've already sent a reporter out there. They realized that he had been out there. I don't know if it was the geolocation of the picture or in the date or somebody was able to figure it out that he had been there the first week of January.
Mm-hmm.
How long was he there? And then did he write this story, have it in his back pocket, wait for this all to blow up, and then change a couple of things? Or what do you think happened? And then also, why do you think he's trying to hide from everybody that he was there since early January, considering he's deleting tweets?
Good question, Lauren.
He's hiding it because he realizes that if he says that he was there in the beginning of January, it was nothing but a puff piece.
Oh, right.
Because she says in the Timcast thing, you should come out and realize what a day in the life is like of me, almost kind of like that Meghan Markle, you should really realize what it's like to have paparazzi after me, but there's none.
Uh-huh.
So that's, she reminds me a lot of Meghan Markle, to be honest.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So that was one. Two, I think Tim used that as a way to act like he was on top of the story when he had kept pushing it along over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think that Cassandra went so hard on people like myself and the Daily Beast, acting like that, they had this exclusive before anybody else, when in reality, he had been there in the beginning of January, just really to write a puff piece of, life on the farm with Eliza.
Why would anyone be interested in that? That sounds like a horribly boring story. Why would anyone be interested in a story like that?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where I think that maybe Tim kind of met his random perfect, he kind of made the perfect timeline, I guess, or he was able to meet the perfect timeline, if that makes sense, where all of a sudden this stuff starts coming out, people are asking questions, and then it's well, hey, we already had a reporter go there,
oh, right.
Right. Throw some little tidbits in, throw some pork in there for the audience, and make it into 4 parts, and, check it out on timcast.com or whatever.
Now, he asks, I'm reading more in the story, he's asking, how did this guy in LA, this unnamed man, grooming how? Quote, finding out my vulnerabilities. What would make me leave my family and come out to LA? He knew exactly what to say. I was probably the easiest mark they ever had. So she was a minor. Like, you didn't leave your family. You said that your dad drove you there. Didn't she say that? And this
Not only that, they got her an apartment there.
Is that what she says in this? Promises of a modeling career, rock star stuff. And so, like, this doesn't sound like. And so, what year was this supposedly? What was this? 2000 and so she was 8. So this is like the 90s. This happened.
Let me tell you something, okay? When I was 3 years old, there was a woman that approached my mother in the mall that said that I was going to be a star and that I should enter child pageants and all this other crap. And my mom looked at her and said, "Get the fuck out of my face."
Yeah, yeah.
Okay? Like, and I get it, that some people want to believe that dream, but then there's also parents that are like, "Get out of here, like you're nuts."
I see what you're saying now. I'm actually reading this for the first time. Eliza said she moved to LA when she was 17. Her parents set her up with an apartment. Within 2 days, she was trafficked. Now, does Shane confirm that with her father and mother, whose farm he is at? Did she confirm? Like, did you guys literally allow your 17-year-old daughter to move across the country to be with some shady guy grooming her? Like, wouldn't you ask the parents to confirm that story?
If I was a journalist reading this article, my guess is no.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Did he even talk to the parents? I mean, that's what I'd like to know. It's like
he should have interviewed just the parents.
No, but that would have to be off the record, and then you'd have to get rid of the article.
Why would it have to be off the record?
Because that's what they told my the other investigative journalist that I'm working with. It has to be off the record, and you have to get rid of the article.
If
parents, all parents of subject matters, you can't talk to.
I mean, that's right. When you have rules like that, if you're Shane, if you're a real reporter, if those are the ground rules, you say I'm not agreeing to those conditions. No. Yeah. No, sorry. I get if you get to talk about your parents' role in this sex trafficking. It sounds like they were accomplices, quite frankly. They drove you there and gave a 17-year-old girl an apartment in LA, and you're obviously a crazy teenage girl rebelling and shit like that. That sounds like a horrible idea. Then you're a shitty parent if you actually did that. I don't believe they did that. I don't believe that.
I just invited Damien and Greg, who are the two other journalists on this with me. Let's see if they come in. But if they do,
yeah,
I mean, they have a lot of stuff as well. But
yeah,
it's ridiculous.
If any
parents public figures at all, and if so, have they spoken out about this?
Actually, you know what's fun? The one person who got the dad on video, this woman, she was actually in my inbox. She only has like 1,700 followers. I think she goes by Evie Warner. Have you seen her tweets? Mm-hmm. Evie got the dad on the phone and recorded a phone call with him, in which she's like, "I'm really concerned about your daughter." But she was the first person to get him on record to say, "Yeah, that's my daughter. Eliza Bleu is his daughter." And now if you're this guy, if you're Shane, wouldn't that be one of the first questions you ask? Like, why are you denying the existence of your dad? He didn't ask that at all, unless I missed it.
Yeah, and Evie's a badass. She's also the one, she's another journalist on this, where she's the one that got the email from World Star.
She was, yes. I mean, those are two pieces of the pie. And I'm like, wow, this random chick with 1,700 followers is the one that did this. That's good. I told her, I'm like, I'm looking to hire people. I'm like, do you do journalism? Like, this is good stuff. You're a good reporter. I mean, that was really good to get the father on the line and record the phone call. That's a really interesting piece of the pie that no one else had.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so I'm like looking about this, and then the picture of her outside the freaking farm, like looking down in the black and white and the lighting. It's like, oh, I mean, how many takes did that take to get that? It's like, this isn't
a photographer come, or did that journalist who was supposed to be biased take these super cringe photos for her?
I don't know.
That we don't know. I mean, usually in a lot of these cases, usually the journalists will take the photos themselves. But I mean, who knows? Who's to say at this point?
Mm-hmm. She goes, did sex come into place before all this? And she goes, it was clear there was no choice. The thing is, like, I hadn't come from that. That wasn't a part of my lifestyle. When he called the buyer, were you thinking anything like, who the fuck is this phone call? No, I was just told we needed more drugs, so we're going to sell you. And I was like, holy shit, I'm a child prostitute. I was embarrassed. I knew immediately I would never tell anyone about this. I'm sorry. I don't believe that. That doesn't even sound remotely believable. You know, can you describe this?
Did she ever talk about, like, after she was sold? Like, then I've heard the part about being sold, but then where did they take her to?
Hollywood Hills. Hollywood, no, Hollywood Hills. This guy's rich.
Up?
It's a rich old guy who, for some reason, only pays $500 for slave prostitutes, which seems like a discount price, quite frankly.
Yeah, she's cute. At least 1,000.
Well, it's just like, like that's like for like they live with you. They're like your slave. Like this guy's like an old, like you live in Hollywood Hills, you cheapskate. And he goes, "Can you describe this man, the buyer? Old, fat, ugly guy. I could probably recreate pieces of his room." Well, let's do it. Like, can you do? Let's do it right now. Like, recreate it. It's weird what your brain remembers.
Paper, bitch.
Yeah.
Let's go.
His bed was red, but not blood red. Oh, for fuck's sake. It had a red blanket. It was a really nice place. And there were multiple people living there. Were they there for you too? Not for me. They came and went. Lots of drugs and alcohol. How long were you there? I can't say. Maybe days? A week? Were you on drugs? Yes, thank God. It was not a pleasant experience. And then she talks about Kurt Cobain and he died and blah, blah, blah. How did you get back home? My parents bought a plane ticket. Somehow they knew. So the same parents that bought you a freaking apartment in LA are all of a sudden like, yes, come back. Like we just have this vision in our head. Something's wrong with our daughter. We need to get her the fuck out of there. Let's get her a plane ticket. And when my dad dropped me off in LA, I think I had a blonde girl. And when I arrived back here, I had jet black hair. Everything I brought home was in a trash bag. My parents didn't recognize me. The people that really hate you are demanding these details, I said, as a way. The people that really hate you, I think that's bias right there. Because that's people like you, Farron. Like, you don't hate her. Here's the freaking journalist who's asking questions.
Oh my God. Truthfully, bitch, I didn't even fucking know you. You started censoring my friends.
Right.
Actually, my friends, if you let Frank Pellegrino speak.
Is he in the comments? He can come up.
He's Greg is here as well.
Yeah. Can I bring Greg on?
I would say bring Greg on. Frank is the executive producer of the documentary. He's brought in a ton of people, including your high school friend. Who was like, yep, she tried to groom me into, you always see like that $500 a night thing, where that's like a constant thing where it's this, I was sold for $500 that night. And you're like, wait a minute. Like, and then you see like where she was. Okay. So I'm from Chicago, and I remember like the club days, in like she was there like 2008 to 2011 or ish, and I started, I graduated college in 2009. So I remember being in the city around like, 09 to like 11, and like where you would have like these club promoters, right? Mm-hmm. And she would put out like these things of like models, like you can come get like $500 a night for, being at like in the champagne room or, whatever. At Spy Bar, the Underground, all these places in Chicago, like where everybody wanted to be. And you see like this whole recurring $500, like, and you're like, oh, okay. Like, no, I get it. It's just weird, a weird number to fixate on.
And honestly, like I said, it's not that much in the hooking world. Like $500, like that seems like a weird number if you're like for slavery, for sex slavery. You're not renting this girl for 30 minutes. She lives with you and shit. Like that's not even remotely believable. Let me read another quote from this story here. She goes, "Everybody's got stuff that's happened to them. I was lying in bed last night thinking about all this. I'm just so grateful that I'm still alive." And by the way, she's saying this in her 2023 white girl voice, not her 2016 holla at ya boy voice, with the code switching.
Oh, so you mean the flow ain't there?
Yeah. Yo, I got all these dogs in my DMs and shit. Easy E, all these motherfuckers in there. Y'all be playing and shit.
Oh,
okay.
Damn, okay, I get it. Got it. Okay, good.
So she goes, so like,
damn, girl.
She goes, so like, it is bad, yes, but like, bro, think about how much life I've had since then. I'm so grateful that despite all this stuff, I did so much dope shit, she says. Oh my God. Do you remember leading anything up to the overdose? I asked. I guess it started at the buyer's house, and then they dropped me in the musician's hallway. I'm surprised they didn't even call anyone. They were probably like, we aren't going to deal with dead girl. Like, oh, she was about to fucking die. A lot of people who have been looking at your past are asking themselves, how could this happen to the daughter of a politician who by the way, lied about being the daughter of a politician. It looked.
Say, wait a minute.
Yeah, like you're not going to address that, Shane? Okay. It looks like she had a nice family. Quote, that's the most disgusting insult, she said. You can be a survivor and be other things. You can have a family. A lot of survivors I know are married, have kids. It's not like you're a survivor and that's all you are. I could be fully in trauma, probably on disability, just rotting away, still off in the LA experience. That's why I'm like, at this point, I don't care what people say. Listen to what I survived. That's crazy. Listen to what, like the whole purpose of this is we don't believe this is what you survived. And we're no longer taking your word for it. But Shane's,
it's like, honey, there's a lot of politicians out there whose kids have had problems. Okay, let's not even count like Nancy Pelosi and Paul. Okay, like Sean Casten, the representative from Illinois, my district where I'm from. Daughter died, they say, maybe of a fentanyl overdose.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
yeah. I mean, by the way,
a lot of people that have had kids that have had problems. You ain't the only one, honey.
Interesting. I did not realize this. I'm looking at people are posting in the comments that Tim did know about it because they actually had the poll question on the show when she was on. Smash the like button if you don't trust Eliza Bleu. Like, so, you know, they were aware of all this, but yeah. Is Greg there? I brought Greg up. Are you there, Greg?
Yeah, no, I'm here, man. Like, and I wanted to comment on, you know, I'm so glad you used the terminology code switching because that's a medical term. So I find that hilarious that they use the proper terminology for that. By the way, huge fan.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Huge Turtleboy fan.
Thank you.
And so I was humbled. I was humbled when I saw you retweeted my stuff because I thought I was making a very, you know, obvious observation because, you know, like maybe it's just like the autism or some shit like that. But like I've got a good vivid memory of like when I see something. So like when I saw that thing where, you know, Eliza was talking about I don't know, he could be the trafficker could be dead. And I always suspect what she's going to put out on Front Street. She'll probably say like it's the other trafficker or other traffic, you know what I mean? Trafficker A, B, or C type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it strikes me as hot garbage because she speaks in such vague and ambiguous terms.
Yes.
You know, I can smell bullshit a mile away.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it's frustrating, it's upsetting, but like, you know, with respect to her, you know, hoeing around or allegedly hoeing around and alleged trafficking days, during that Eliza Knows interview, I think she purported that she was propositioned for like something, I don't know, like 150 grand.
Yes, 150 grand, and she turned it down. But yo, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, that's bullshit.
Yeah, of course it's bullshit.
I'm sorry.
The $500.
Are you Demi Moore? Is this indecent proposal or some shit like that?
I know.
Like that was legitimately like the freaking plot from that movie like 30 years ago.
Pretty Woman.
Sorry, you're not that. You got she is an all right looking lady.
Yeah.
You know, but she looks like the bitch from fucking 𝗥𝗂𝗆 with a lazy eye. I'm sorry.
By the way, so just to let the audience know, the thing I retweeted you about today, which was great, and this is a great find by you. It's amazing. The more she talks, the more she contradicts other things she said. She said in the interview when they asked her, Shane asks her, the man in LA who sold you to get in trouble, I asked. She goes, I don't know. I haven't looked. I almost thought about looking right now before I came out here, but I can't. What keeps you from looking? He asked. What keeps you from looking? Why go back? She said. Wouldn't you find some type of solace knowing he was in jail? I don't think he's alive, she said. And then you found a tweet of hers from 2020 in which she flat out said, my former trafficker still follows me on social media, which is great. So
yeah, and I would like to say I did mispronounce a word. I said she looks like the bitch from 𝗥𝗂𝗆 with lazy eye. I meant 𝗥𝗂𝗆.
Oh, okay. I'm like, I politely laughed because I'm like, what the fuck is 𝗥𝗂𝗆? All right, okay.
𝗥𝗂𝗆 is a 1980s arcade game by Namco, and 𝗥𝗂𝗆 is like a 1997 space film. But you know, that's what she looked. And I'm sorry, she is not $150K worth. Now, if she was, you know, getting sold for $500 a pop, I mean, in like the 1990s,
you have to be like
we also can't forget is that she also, I think it was you, Greg, that had the tweets out about how you know, there was the whole thing that happened with Derrick Rose, where somebody had reported him for
the Chicago Bulls player at the time.
Yes. Which actually, crazy story, true story.
By the way, he was the first person I thought of when I thought high-profile Chicago athlete around the time of 2010. I'm like, is she talking about Derrick Rose?
The craziest part is I was actually dancing for the Bulls at that point.
Oh, how about that?
And he had a freaking girlfriend and a baby mama. So, like, it was one of these things where it was like, I mean, I remember seeing these people day in and day out coming out of the United Center. And either way, when I saw this tweako about a high-profile athlete, and then her saying that she, you know, grew up on the gang-ridden side of Chicago, I have another reporter who's on this with us. Because, like I said, there's like a little group of us, like little investigative journalists on this, along with myself, Greg, Damien, as my friend Kit, who is with Heartlands Media, who went to the different addresses where she was registered. It's on the north side of Chicago. For anybody that knows Chicago, the Gold Coast. That is
my God.
Is that the rich part?
White people land. Very expensive land.
That's where she's living?
I also have a guy who she dated, who she used to go and like watch his cat, you know, because cats need watching. And she would crash at his place all the time. And the guy's like, yeah, she'd be there like strung out on whatever. She would come in like every 2 weeks, you know, kind of then be out all night and then go back to the farm and then, you know, bring up, you know, try to like, you know, get whatever money she could gather together and then go back to the city. And that was kind of her whole MO.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, no, I've got a working hypothesis with regard. I don't disbelieve the concept that maybe she was like couch surfing in like LA, portions of Chicago, stuff like that.
100%.
But like, I've got a working hypothesis because, like, you know, when I was younger, like I used to be around like the dope game and stuff like that when I was you know in my teens and what have you. And there would be people couch surfing, and people were legitimately trying to figure out, how do I get this person off my couch? And they would just shovel them off to somewhere else. So I have no doubt in my mind that she may have been couch surfing for a couple of days at some photographer's house in LA, and he was probably thinking like, I need to get this person off my freaking couch. This person's a hassle. And he probably called somebody on the phone, much like how she allegedly reimagined the events. She probably called somebody. He's like, hey man, can this thing stay at your house, man? Because I want her gone. Because I've been sitting around during those conversations where, and yes, there have been times where it was a woman. There was somebody couch surfing.
And I'm with you, man. I think
get them off my couch.
I think she was just like a free-spirited, rebellious teen girl from a conservative Midwestern family that wanted to go out and get drunk and get high and party and do this and that. And she probably banged a lot of dudes, and that's fine, no judgment, whatever. But then she just turned it into a trafficking story. I think that's all this is. I think it's that simple.
Well, the parents.
Yeah, she regrets her Rumspringa.
The parents' idea, the $500 everywhere, gets me thinking that's what it is. She was just a bottle girl. That's it. And she worked for $500 a night. Now she's looking back on it with regret, and she's calling it sex trafficking.
I think that's exactly it. Like, she's just redefining her life as sex trafficking and adding all this stuff about like drugged out hallways. Let me read this from Shane. So he goes, and after you flew home, you were sort of comatose? He asks her. I had no strength, not just physical strength. I had no mental strength. The traffickers didn't kill me. The sex abuse didn't kill me. That was all the time when HIV was still making its rounds pretty heavily. But during that time, it would have been a big concern. The fact that I survived that and didn't come out with HIV, I cannot believe it. And then he goes, I wanted to laugh when I heard this. Shane writes, hearing this story made me sick. I stopped eating. Ladies and gentlemen, Shane put down his fucking sandwich. That was a really important part of the story here. This was all her account. She could be totally.
So this was the early 90s then?
I guess. Yeah, go right, because the AIDS epidemic,
this
right?
Would have been 1998.
Not even like
80s.
Yeah, like
1998.
But the AIDS epidemic was like 91 and shit.
That's
like
why I asked. So
yeah,
the early 90s. That's why I fucking asked.
That's a good point. Yeah.
God,
yeah.
damn.
She even adds AIDS in there. But
was she there when Harvey Milk got shot too?
She goes on. She goes. Shane goes, This is the classic Shane. This was all her account. She could be totally lying. It could also be true. No fucking shit, Shane. That's why we're reading your story. That's why we're reading your fucking story. You're supposed to tell us if it's true or not. Like, what are we doing here? This is the definition of clickbait. This told us nothing. The only thing I've learned so far, the only factual thing I've learned so far is that the Babylon Bee canceled on her. That's interesting.
In part 3, what type of sandwich it was.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Find out in part 4. Is she the new female Forrest Gump? It was at every freaking waking moment.
Yeah.
From 1998 and beyond.
If it's a lie, I'm sick that someone would go this far to tell such warped lie. And I'm sick that if it is true, I'm just asking her to relive some dark trauma. He's just doing this like fence sitting thing. Like, dude, make up your mind. You spent
Coming up how she was in Tower 2 on 9/11. Like, what?
Yeah. It's important for me to hear your side of the story. I said, I know you've said it on some podcasts, but I need to hear it in person, not in the studio, not with cameras on. She's saying the same shit she said in all those. When I'm talking to other survivors, we laugh a lot. We joke, not about the abuse, but we have dark humor. Not all the time, but like amongst survivors, we weave in and out of intense conversations all the time.
God.
Are you with me that she just made up those things that she read about the Tate survivors too? I don't believe for a second Andrew Tate fucking victims reached out to her.
I think hot garbage from the top.
You think she what?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I think it's hot garbage from the
Okay. See,
like from detailing traumatic experiences, because I've told this to other people. Like during my time in prison, like I was sent down to prison.
Oh, you're an ex-con.
5 years. I did 4. Yeah. So I did 4 years, 3 months on a 5-year sentence. And yes, like we do have, because prison is traumatic. Like I do legitimately have PTSD from it. And there are things that we'll laugh about, but we'll laugh about legitimately funny things. Like there was this guy in prison we were locked up with who made up a story making himself sound like freaking John Rambo. And like he was really stocky from the top and had these little pencil legs. So we called him Sergeant Stilts. We would laugh about that. But like we wouldn't laugh about the time that, somebody got freaking stabbed to death.
Do you think she's making up the part about the Andrew Tate survivors? Because I think she just wrote that herself.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so ambiguous.
Than the lawsuit Kate Peter has, the copyright lawsuit.
Yeah, that's true.
Like it is straight up out of WordPress. Like,
right.
Straight up just.
Well, the other thing you have to look at too, though, Lauren, too, is that the NCOSC, the National Center of of Sexually Exploited Children, or Sexually Exploited whatever, on the front page, when Eliza had appeared on Timcast, 2 days prior, the front page, you went on their website, ncosc.com. Are you a victim of Andrew Tate? We want to speak to you. Literally 4 days ago, after this story broke with her, 2 days after the Daily Beast article broke. I think it broke on a Thursday.
Yeah, it was February 1st it broke.
By that Saturday, that whole "Are you a victim of Andrew Tate?" completely taken off the NCOSC website.
Really?
Gone.
Wow.
Gone.
Wow.
Yes. And I had been following that every single day because I have a friend of mine, Lynn Shaw. I was on a radio program last Saturday, who she has an actual foundation where she actually helps victims of human trafficking. And like, we're talking like real victims. And a lot of these foundations have been on her in the sense of, why is the NCOSC putting out like this kind of celebrity person? Why are they jumping on a lawsuit? Having all these questions. And then once all this Eliza stuff dropped, boom, gone from the website.
Wow. What a coincidence.
I have several questions. Wait, that wasn't before, right? So there's no way that she could have gotten like some sort of tidbit from... No one could have posted to that, and then she went on Timcast, right? Like, which order
I think she was trying to represent those victims under like the NCOSC, since she was a partner.
Would she have the legal
most
right?
Foundations, just so you're aware too, for some background, most of these human trafficking foundations are already partners with the NCOSC. So the fact that like she came out and was, I'm a survivor advocate, I'm sure when she was here in DC the multiple times that she's been in talks with them as far as being a partner. The question is that did her money go to them? That's another big part of this whole thing.
Well, my question is with the things that she read out from the advocates, the things that like the anonymous letters from those girls, if those allegedly came from some woman who's reaching out to what she thinks is an attorney trying to represent her, and this woman takes her private conversations that's supposed to be attorney-client privilege and reads it out on Timcast, wouldn't that be an issue as well?
Well, and that's the one thing that I'm sure Aiden, myself, Greg, Lauren, I mean, you're raising a great question. All of us journalists know that any time a victim comes forward, whether it's one victim or 10 victims, the lawyer is usually the one reading it. How do we know this? Look at frickin' Gloria Allred, okay? She's the one that comes out and is, I'm here for the victims and here's what we all have to say, And then if anything, the victim comes forward and the lawyer is literally at her shoulder. So the fact that she goes on Timcast and says this, no lawyer present, nobody 100%. From the NCOSC, no other representative, you have to question, like, what is this?
Yeah.
And that's where my antenna went up.
And
yeah, that's spot on. Yeah, because you and your reference to Gloria Allred is perfect. Because I've
interviewed Gloria Allred so many times, and Gloria has told me off the record, off camera, where she's just like, she's like, she told me, she's like, Baron, people think that I always want to be in the spotlight. No, like I have to be there for these victims in case people start saying stuff and they want to start talking. I have to be there to tell them to shut up.
Right.
And that's why she's always
yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And can I read another?
She went out. You remember back in the during the 2012 primaries when she came out and trotted out victims, alleged victims of Herman Cain. The Cain train when he was in the primary with Mitt Romney. Or what? Yeah, was that 20? Yeah, I think it was 2012.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And she was the only one speaking. And, that was Herman Cain. And yes, he was a Republican primary, and he was a threat to Obama at the time. And he wound up losing the primary, and it was largely because of the Allred stuff. But typically when you have these type of victims, they contact a lawyer. They're not going to contact freaking Eliza Bleu.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. That's the part that's like the self-importance of her whole thing. Like anybody who's ever been trafficked, they immediately just call 1-800 Eliza Bleu. Get her on the phone. She's gonna protect me. Like she is the defender. But it's just like, and it's fantastic when you think about it. Just like if this is all just a fucking big lie, which I think it is. That's amazing what the grift that she's been able to pull off of here.
And Aiden, that's where I know it's a big lie, because if you watch my trailer, the last part, okay, where she's like, I would ask that all of you just believe us. That is a statement. That's a statement where she's literally shaking her ass as she says it. That's the statement that she says on Timcast.
Right.
From those victims. She's like, but what if you're wrong?
Right.
And then you have the infamous merch where he's like, well, what if I'm right, though?
Yeah. Can I read a little more here? So, like, my question, like, I'm like putting the timeline on her, and it's like around 2020 is when she really started pushing the sex trafficking thing. And the first time I really saw her get any sort of fame was the Daily Wire story, which was in April of 2020. And when I was reading that, I'm wondering who contacted who here? Because if this is a man...
Can I stop you for 1 second?
Go ahead.
You also have to look at the timing of all of this, because this is another thing that, like, Greg, Damien, myself, we've all looked into.
Epstein. No?
Good guess, though. She does these music videos from 2016 up until the last one that we know of is 2019, maybe early 2020. What happens in 2020?
COVID, a lot of shit. George Floyd.
COVID. Yes, yeah. COVID. And what happens in LA? The movie business shuts down. Any production studios shut down. Everything shuts down. You can't make movies, music videos, even even music studios. You can't even record stuff. Everything shuts down in LA.
Mm.
So what's the next thing you can do?
Sex
oh, wait, hang on. Wait a minute. Hang on. Let's look at how most of her followers initially were all members of QAnon.
Oh, were they? I didn't know that.
What was QAnon pushing?
Lots of crazy shit, like
including
pedophiles. That's right. Yeah, the pedophile shit.
Yeah.
And sex trafficking.
All of that.
Yeah, they promoted the hashtag Protect the Children. Initially, they were the originators of Protect the Children.
Yeah.
So when your book of business is completely shut down in LA, and you move home and you're trying to figure out your next job, and you see the hashtag Protect the Children, all of a sudden you've been human trafficked.
Mm. Now it's interesting when I read this, because I wanted to know, because it makes a big difference to me, how she got on the Daily Wire, if they contacted her or if she contacted them. Because if they contacted her, it would signify that she's a person of interest and a major conservative institution thought that she was important enough to reach out to. If she contacted them,
I know for a fact from the producer at that time that she contacted.
Well, no, that's what I'm getting to. Well, that's what I'm getting to, because it says that in this story. It goes, her first appearance publicly as a survivor of human trafficking and as an advocate for survivors was through an article in the Daily Wire written by Amanda P. whatever. She said she reached out to the Daily Wire. So that's now two things I've learned in here, is that like that Daily Wire, that was a big one, because that was the first time she was legitimized from my research by conservative media. And we know that she was the one that initiated the contact. So she's clout chasing. Her whole life is clout chasing, reaching, and it's just a different sort of grift. And she's like, well, what's popular in conservative circles around this time? Well,
I also know for a fact, I have a friend who happened to be a producer at the Daily Wire at that time, who said after her interview, people literally were like, I don't know.
Yeah, we're at the Daily Wire, really. So they were skeptical
at the
of her.
Daily Wire, yes.
Then why would they still publish it?
I think it was one of these things where, like how many of us are right now, where it's like, do you really want to question a sex trafficking survivor story?
We need to get past. Me Too was so toxic to our culture.
Right, and if you remember, like it still wasn't over at that time.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, 2020. That was 3 years ago, believe it or not. 2016 was 7 years ago. I feel so old, you know, like, but it feels like it was yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a lot of people kind of, you know, there was a number of producers I know for a fact that after her interview, they were just kind of like, that was kind of weird. It wasn't like that they didn't believe her or anything, that they just thought it was weird.
Now, it goes on to say that let me read this quote from her. She goes, I didn't reach out to them to cover me. I didn't want to be public about my story or advocacy. She kind of clouds it in this whole, like, I don't give a shit about me. It's not about my brand. It's about the survivors. It's about other people, to kind of make it seem like she's not clout chasing. She goes on to say, now, do you know why Amanda Presto took down her Twitter? Like, I went on her Twitter to read some of these. All her tweets are gone. Everything's gone from her page. I don't know what that's about. Like, did you notice that? Because I went to go find these tweets. They're all gone.
Amanda who again?
Amanda Presto from the Daily Wire, the one that wrote the story about her. And because this tweet that she has, she goes about, what's her name? She goes, I thought it would bring more attention to the issue, and it did. I don't regret asking her to do so. She's one of the fiercest fighters I know. I'm told she's now being targeted personally, right as she's helping Elon Musk fight child exploitation on Twitter. Strange timing. There's no timestamp on there in this story, just a screenshot of it. So I don't know when she tweeted that out. If it was this week or if it was a couple months ago, that kind of makes a big difference here. If the Daily Wire is still standing by her. Because I'd like to know more about that.
I doubt that. And I bet that tweet was probably when the interview was first published.
Oh, okay. Because all of her tweets are now gone. Like, I was
going to say, like, a lot of times, like, when people leave, you know, like, if they went from the Daily Wire to the Blaze or whatever, they'll totally start a brand new Twitter. So I bet that
she was working for the Daily Wire then. So she did. So it's unclear about, like, Eliza came to me during the pandemic. So this, when I see during the pandemic, that makes it seem more close to now, because you're referring to the pandemic as part of history, with serious worries about abuse trafficking. Her concern was always with others. She had so much knowledge about how to address this vital issue, otherwise largely ignored. I asked her to include her name and photo because, and blah, 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 blah. And they showed direct messages between each other. And so I don't know what his point was with all this. But I mean, I'm more interested in exploring, like, why didn't Shane get into it? Like, why didn't he interview Amanda for this story about, like, do you believe her? Like, what do you think about this?
Because that would have required work.
Right.
But also, if you bring in Megan Fox.
Yeah, you can bring her on.
Megan Fox is an investigative journalist as well, and she knows exactly what's happened with Amanda's tweets.
Oh,
she
really?
Can speak to that.
So you can raise your hand, I think, Amanda. Is that how this works? If she wants to come on. You said Amanda, right? Fox?
No, I'm sorry,
Megan Fox. Yeah, Megan. If you want to wait, I don't know how this works. If you have to, like, raise your hand to come in, that's what you guys did.
She kind of teased with the Transformer actress all the time.
Yes.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Yes.
So you're free to. Do I invite them on? Can I do that?
I was saying, if you invite them as a speaker,
how do I fuck
or if you want to invite me as a co-host, I can help you out.
Oh yeah. Well. So let me. How do I do that? I can. Let's see. Co-host.
Oh, she can't talk now, but hang on.
Oh, she can't talk. Okay.
Hang on, but what she's saying is that I know Amanda.
I just invited you to co-host. Okay.
Okay, perfect. But she did say, though, that and I'll send her a speaking invite as well. But she did say, let me go back to my messages really quick. Amanda has been banned from Twitter several times. She may have been banned again or stopped using her account.
That's right.
I vouch for Amanda 100%.
Okay. Now, does Amanda still believe the story that, like, does Amanda? What I want to know what Amanda thinks of Eliza here. Like, does she believe the bullshit Eliza told her 3 years ago? That's what I'm interested in knowing. Like, has her opinion changed? And now you're telling us that some people at the Daily Wire thought that this sounded shady from the beginning.
The two producers that I know that heard the interview, that overheard it, were kind of like, ugh. And I will say, one of them was not Amanda.
Okay.
I will say that.
Okay. Yeah.
And Megan did say, I don't know what Amanda thinks, but she is solid in the sense of, like, you know, her Twitter has been banned before.
I remember that for that transgender stuff. Yeah. She's misgendered people, if I recall.
Yeah. Daily Wire doesn't try to, like, take, like, for instance, when Kanye started doing all of the anti-Semitic stuff, Daily Wire didn't say anything negative about him. Like, yeah, Candace Owens gets in her own personal spats with people, but Daily Wire tries really hard not to say anything negative about anyone.
Well, they try to be above it. Yeah, that's their thing. They you know, with the whole Steven Crowder thing, they tried to do the same. Like, you know, they don't. But in fairness, that is their brand. Is that they don't. This is more of a Tim Pool kind of thing. Like, they're the guys that get more into this in the nitty gritty, and that's why I think a lot of people don't expect the Daily Wire to get into shit like this. People do expect it from Tim, and that's unfortunate. Especially because she was freaking on there 3 weeks ago in his most controversial episode, and his fans are disappointed about it. And he's doing himself no. You know, the other one who's getting kind of a free pass with this is Michael Malice. He had her on. I found this audio the other day. I mean, the most ridiculous thing she said is that she was trafficked because people made fake accounts of her on Twitter. Did you hear that audio?
So that's the one thing is, I will say that actually I think Michael Malice is the one that actually exposed her, because I had that in my trailer where he's like, oh, so this is more of a case of identity theft. And I actually think that Michael Malice is the one that initially got people to be like, huh? Like,
I've heard people say that she gave her the rope to basically hang herself, but then I went through his timeline and I searched her name on there, and he's kissing her ass like up until like a month ago. He's like on there. He was mocking people who were questioning her story, and it's like, okay, you know. He goes on December. Let's see, a tweet from him on December 12th, 2022. Somebody was kind of taking a shot at Eliza, and he takes a screenshot of it and he's like, this might be the saddest attempt at a gotcha I've ever seen. And then he tags her in it. Like, see, I'm white knighting for you. You know, like, look at me. I got your back. All these people are talking shit about you, but I got your back, girl. So I don't buy that whole, like, he's just giving her the rope thing. I think that he was in on it. Like, he's fucking falling for this shit too. They all did.
Okay, but like, if you fell for it, wouldn't it be super hard to admit? Like, wouldn't it be hard to retract?
So many. No, not really. I think a lot of people have. I've seen other people come forward, and didn't Adam Krigler? Didn't he kind of come forward and be like, "Yeah, I'm all set with. I'm not associating with this chick anymore," if I recall.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, didn't he wind up also deleting a tweet that she retweeted or something? Like, wasn't it Krigler? I think was like Eliza wound up like retweeting him or something like that. And like, I think he saw that she was using his tweet in a context to make herself look better. And I think he wound up just deleting the tweet so she couldn't do it anymore.
Oh, I see. Okay, so that's his way of distancing himself from her. I also have a guy.
One of the things though, like, is that should be important though. Like, for example, I mean, just like as a pure, you know, looking at the opposite angle. Okay, how many people had Bill Cosby as a guest on their show? You know, like,
yeah, that's a good point.
From Johnny Carson to Jimmy Fallon, I mean, all these people had this guy who was on their show, and at this, you know, but here's the thing though, is that like at the time they didn't know that this was happening. Now that everybody knows, I don't think it's so much of who is coming out and denouncing her. I think it's more of if they came out and still platformed her.
The only reason I disagree with you, Farron, is because her whole thing was about the sex trafficking. So it's like she should have been pressed from the beginning, whereas like Bill Cosby's whole thing wasn't about like supporting women against getting their drinks spiked.
100%. But here's the only thing though, is that at the time when she first started coming out, which is like mid 2020, like April 2020 is the earliest. Which is like the Harvey Weinstein hadn't even gone to court yet. And here it was. I mean, could you imagine somebody questioning a trafficker or somebody that was trafficked? How much of a piece of shit you would have been?
Yeah, to look like.
And so that's where I think a lot of these, because mind you, that's when she kind of really started her whole grift. And I think, now, mind you, Adam Krigler has come out and said, like, nope, I believed her and I don't believe her anymore.
Okay, good. See, it is possible.
You know,
it is possible.
He has come out. But I think at the time, though, where it's going to be very hard for people to, like, and trust me, I get it. I know that people want people to come out and be like, God damn you, you piece of shit. Like, how dare you do this? You know, like, I get it. But it's going to take people a while because to really question somebody that was trafficked, to really hold them to that standard, it's going to be really hard because they're going to feel like a piece of shit too.
I mean, Congress didn't even question 𝗏𝗃 Ford or whatever.
I mean,
so
I will
they're
say,
still barely questioning George Santos for Christ's sake.
I will say this. I do think that no matter, even if Tim covers this, it doesn't matter. Her reputation's destroyed at this point. She can no longer do what she was doing 2 months ago. She can't do it anymore. I mean, would you agree with that? It's over.
I do think she's literally at the George Santos level where there's just so many inconsistencies that it's just not going to work anymore, you know?
Right. Except George Santos, can't, like, he was elected, so he can't go anywhere. He's like, literally, he could stay there for 2 years, like, no problem. Whereas like the invites are going to end. Like, she's not going to get the invites that she was getting previously.
What would you do if you were her?
I guess that's a great question. I think I'd probably do what she's doing now, I guess.
Retreat to the farm.
It's like, it's kind of her only option. Like, she has two options, I guess. Come clean and just admit you're a complete fraud, or just double down and just be like, nope, I'm telling the truth. And that's the end of that.
What she's doing. She's really doubling down.
Well, yeah. Like it was something that I covered. Like, and you know, by the way, you know, I am going to do a little bit of a shameless plug because you know I am unemployed. So I did recently start up a YouTube channel, and I did cover this in a video that I did the other day, where she has experience navigating being canceled. but she's dealing with a cancellation that is far greater than the first one she endured. Because she endured a cancellation in early 2007 when she referred to her then friend Jeffree Star, who was part of the world's most hated crew, which was a MySpace scene music crew at the time. I was more into like, heavy and death metal and stuff like that, so I didn't follow like My Chemical Romance, so I didn't give a shit about that. But at the time, she referred to Jeffree Star as as her N-word. And
I saw that's the video. Yep.
Who Jeffree Star is also known to now pay off people that he sexually abused back in the day for thousands of dollars.
Is he transgender?
Yeah.
See
to even
calls himself androgynous.
Okay, he was the guy filming the video where she called them the N-word, right? Like he looked like a chick.
Yeah.
Okay, that's him.
Yeah,
all right, gotcha.
And Eliza even demonstrated how detrimental that was, because in an interview that she had in December of 2007, she said her only one regret was referring to Jeffree Star as that racial epithet, because obviously it had an impact. And I was able to find old blogs and old My Chemical Romance blogs from 2007 where people were trashing her all over the comments because of that. And these are things that just exist now, and that's even operating in the realm of dead internet theory. And I was still able to find that stuff. So that is I realistically only a fraction of the pushback that she dealt with. So she reinvented her identity. She stopped being Eliza Cuts, and she leaned into Eliza C, and then eventually Eliza Knows. So she is probably trying to recreate that, but unfortunately, the internet of 2023 is not the internet of 2007. She doesn't really have that opportunity to reinvent herself because the paper trail is just too long at this point.
Right.
And I shot Farron a message earlier today, I think a text earlier, where she's copyright claiming old Tumblr blogs because they're disappearing.
Yeah, she got a lot of. She copyrighted a whole bunch of people. I mean, Farron, did your YouTube get copyrighted by her? Are you one of the victims?
Oh, I am. I like to call myself the original victim. Ever since my trailer that popped out, that everybody, I told people, I was like, I'm not going to copyright claim you. Just like play it on your channel, get the word out.
Post it in this Twitter thread.
Yeah, and
also I posted Greg's page and his YouTube link in this Twitter thread if anyone wants to look at it.
Yeah, and that's kind of what got people the privacy complaints. I do want to bring in somebody really quick. I do want to bring in Miss Peeps, because Miss Peeps is a human trafficking survivor.
Oh, a real one.
And she has been very vocal in the spaces that we've done. And to kind of give you kind of her assessment as to why, and I'm inviting you to speak, Miss Peeps, if you're there, to where she has brought even her own personal experience and like why she doesn't believe any of this, and what she has come forward to understand. Can you hear me, Miss Peeps? Yeah. Yeah, and I wanted to bring you forward because you were so monumental in our other Twitter spaces as somebody that actually is a victim of this, and to why to bring more context for like Aiden and everybody else here as to why the alarm bells went off with you.
Well, I didn't know who she was. I somehow seen a tweet of hers on my For You, and I retweeted it. And like the next day or two, I seen Elon talking about her or with her about something, and I was just like, wow. And I didn't even go to the spaces or anything, but when I first listened to that first space she had with Elon, that was the first like I had ever really heard of her. And when I just started listening to it, I just knew right then. I was just like, what? This doesn't make sense. Just on that Twitter space, the way she acted, the way she just was, So I just watched her for a while. And then I was like, wow, this chick is, I don't know who this is. And that's when I kind of somehow I came up on 𝗕𝗿𝗂𝗺𝗏𝗀's thread. And I was like, yeah, I just knew from the beginning somehow that none of this was right. But yeah, I don't know how she thinks she's going to get out of all of this. I wonder when 𝗵𝗶𝗃𝗏, I found out later that 𝗵𝗶𝗃𝗏 had said something about her too. And I was like, well, how did she get out of that? I guess maybe it wasn't as big of a deal, I guess, then.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of the things, Miss Peeps, that I want to ask you too is like even Aiden brought up in her in the article from Shane, is, you know, we all have like this dark humor. We all have like these little jokes, these little dark humors. Do you?
Yeah.
I mean, I can laugh at a lot of things, but some things, you know, even on when you would joke, or what is your friend's name? Christy, the one, what's her name?
Christy Mayer. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Where it was like, when the jokes first started, I've been trafficked. That like got to me. So there's like dark humor. No, not really. I look a lot into things. So even that kind of bothered me. But then, you know, I have to realize that if you haven't been through it, then you don't really know. And there's a time for jokes and there's a time to not joke about it. But she seems to be like, there's no way you're talking about this horrible thing.
Right.
And you're laughing and you're like, to me, that is just not, I don't know. It's all just a big fabrication to me. And like you said, I think she was probably doing fine until COVID and everything shut down. And then she becomes this person that, she's been fighting. And it's kind of clear that she has no idea about the numbers with Twitter. And even, I mean, she takes up for Elon for everything. And it's like, you care more about him than you care about whatever's going on.
Well, she's credited herself. She's taken credit for getting rid of child porn on Twitter, which she had nothing to do with.
She had nothing to do with
right.
it. I'm convinced of that.
Yes.
Yeah. And
can I ask just what your like I just am trying to avoid another Eliza situation. Like I don't want details, but like, can you give us like briefly what your situation was so we can know like how in reference to Eliza's story you knew that it was all bullshit?
I mean, I don't know how I knew. I just kind of knew. Maybe it was something she said. I can't even remember. But mine started when I was little, when I was young. I mean, this goes back to, you know, floppy disks and the beginning, really. Like the person who, I can't say, see, we have to look at trafficking, that word, differently, because my situation is, I was on VHS, I was on floppy disks. The person who was, you know, sending those out, and you would even say digitally trafficking me then, even though it may not have been on the internet, but this is someone who, he was getting, you know, back then he was getting beta checks and getting paid by Microsoft and getting checks to do beta testing. And, you know, when I look back on it, I think of kind of the beginning of the dark web, if you know what I mean. And when I finally got evidence, because you have to have evidence to turn these people in. He was like in with the politicians, the police, everybody. And, you know, for her to eat, that's another thing that makes me angry about it. For her to say that her life is in danger, she has no idea what, basically the FBI just left me sitting here when everybody around me knew what was going on. And, you know, the police chief of where I live, resigned after all of this. Lawyers resigned, judges resigned, and that's how usually it will happen. It won't happen where, you know, they're brought out if somehow it was all covered up. Wow. Because all of these people resigned around this.
And this is verified, by the way.
Did you get?
She has verified it with
was
me.
he arrested?
Yeah, well, there's a whole big story there, but we got evidence on him. We turned it into the FBI, and in court, it was just played as kind of a child porn thing, where it was only child porn, but the whole history of it and the whole, like the whole city thing and the people that were involved, and it's also involved people in Illinois too, because I live in Indiana and I'm right on the border of Illinois. So there's also people there involved too that I'm pretty sure that resigned and just went off and, you know, didn't, you know. But I mean, even right now, the attorney general that was in charge of my case treated me pretty badly. She, you know, at the time I felt like I was responsible. I turned him in, so I had to try. This was my mom's boyfriend, so I had to try to help take care of her.
Okay.
And I asked for help with a job, and I never got any reply. Now, this is the same person right now that is Attorney General in Virgin Islands. After they've fired, you know, the lady who actually brought the case against Chase, which I was so upset about because it seemed like Biden was there at the same time, and, you know, it was just like everything. And then also the FBI agent that I had, I remember her leaving, you know, right before or around the trial time, and saying she had to go to California. And then I find out there was like a Pornhub or one of those cases that she was on. And so I don't really know how big the reach was for the FBI, for the Attorney General. But when you just look at the outside facts, just the facts that are there, it's pretty big. If, you know, but I don't have the, you know, I'm just on my phone. I don't have the means to really look in and dive in. And these are just things that I've searched and seen.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I wanted to bring you forward, though, Miss Peeps, was because, like, from day one, when you were in our Twitter spaces, like, you told us, like, this is what happened, this is when it happened, this is how it happened. I mean, you had so many different, you know, insights. And again, like you saying, like, I had a feeling that, like, this girl wasn't for real, in the sense of the way that you have talked about dealing with your trauma, the way you've dealt with, you know, you've talked with other people who have the same kind of trauma, that have gone through the same thing. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to kind of bring you forward to at least let Aiden hear your story a little bit here, because you've been so influential in the way that even I've thought about all of this, in the sense of where you're like, no, I knew from day one, like, this was not real.
I think that, I don't know if you could call that, it's because I come from low, I've been pretty poor all my life, low income. I come from what you would call the hood, I guess, you know? So it's just something you kind of learn when you're...
And so,
you kind of just, you know.
By the way, everyone is saying, I didn't watch Timcast tonight because I've been doing this, but everybody's saying that Tim covered this and lied tonight. That's what everyone's saying. Like, the quartering is, I'm reading some tweets here from, he's going off. He's saying, did he just say we're getting paid to promote Eliza Bleu? He goes, he called it a masterful grift at the end by Timcast tonight. So it seems like Tim did address this tonight more than anything. I'm interested, and people are just calling him a liar. And he goes, I can't fucking believe this. This is wild, the quartering. So a lot of people are talking about this. I'm anxious to hear it. The last thing that I'm just going to talk about real quick. At the end of this story, he kind of leaves us on a cliffhanger, like he's going to talk to the parents next. Mr. Shaney is going to talk to Eliza's parents next. So you better tune in for part 2, and you better sit on this website for 20 minutes and consume this whole thing, because we'll see. It's just, This is not good. This is.
And you know what? You know what's so disgusting, Aiden, to me?
Yeah.
Personally.
What?
Again, like when you hear like Mrs. Peep's story and like other victims that have come forward that I've interviewed for my documentary, those are the people that should really be listened to. Those are the people actually, and mind you, I'm going to tell you this, not Eliza, also Mrs. Peep's as well. The number one race that's trafficked in the United States are young black women.
Mm-hmm.
Young black women.
Mm-hmm.
Why is Eliza not telling you this? Why is Eliza not telling you that January was Human Trafficking Month? Why is she not telling you that? Oh, because that doesn't really, help her. It actually helps victims. And that's the problem, the biggest problem that I have in all of this is that there are people that actually need help.
Mm-hmm.
And you're seeing that like somebody is grifting off of this. I mean, nobody's talking about how her little award that she got about a month ago from the Polaris Star Foundation. Yeah, that won her $2,000.
Oh, she didn't mention that.
Where did that $2,000 go? Where did it go?
Mm-hmm.
The NCOSC. I would love a receipt on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I sent you a Christmas gift by a direct message. You remember the Daily Wire article from April 2020?
Yes, I do.
Remember the the picture in it? It's so funny. I found this gem from March of 2020.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. I'm going to retweet it.
Oh, yeah. It's gold.
Yeah.
Because remember, she purportedly didn't want to put herself out in Front Street about being a victim, so on and so forth. Yet a month before that April 2020 article, here she is with the same photo they used in the article.
On the same exact day, on the same March 11th, which I believe was the day before the COVID lockdowns began, it says 2020 goals: look better in real life than you do online, have a cleaner mouth online than you do in real life, learn every day and teach every day. If you have any hashtag human trafficking questions for upcoming live chats, drop them in the comments. And she is wearing a shirt. I mean, talk about a filter on this. I mean, the amount of filter in this picture, and it just says "Stop Traffic." That's what the shirt says.
Right. If you're being trafficked, just give me your questions.
I love the hashtag.
Honestly,
in case you're searching.
If I were being trafficked, I probably she does look really sexy in this picture, and she has I
know the professionally done. It's just like
the white T-shirt,
oh
and her, right on the chest it says traffic.
And you see Hotep Jesus.
Yeah, I do see Hotep Jesus in the response.
For an anti-trafficking.
If you're being trafficked, you for sure have a phone that you can talk freely out of. Totally.
Now she must not have had a lot of followers at this time.
Jesus is flirting with her in the comment.
Yep, he's like, you ain't one of them non-binary.
Like, oh, you look good.
Yeah,
and she was on his podcast, siphoning money from his viewers.
Right.
Yeah.
Now it's funny because this tweet only has 42 likes and a few retweets, because back then she probably only had a couple thousand followers at most, and so she's used, and that just shows that before she was Miss Face of Human Trafficking, she was no one. And that this has literally redefined her. And I think she was planning on doing this forever. I don't know. Was she hoping that people just wouldn't look into her past?
So that brings up a great point, because I saw that you tweeted the audio that I clipped with the Katie Herzog.
Yes, that was great. That was great.
And I want you to realize something. I literally brought on Miss Peeps, told her to talk about her story, and literally just, it was a little bit tough, but went into her story and what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And you notice in the Katie Herzog request, when she says, hey, I want to talk a little bit about more of your story, she's met with a barrage of how dare yous. And did you talk to Amanda, aka my assistant, about this? And the reason that I clipped at the end, that where it's I'm blue, I'm a diva.
Yes.
It was a joke. But I clipped at the end. That was actually a guy who studies people who defraud people, and he tells the guy from ABC, he's like, the one thing that people do to defraud people is literally hit at basically their heartstrings, where who is going to say no to human trafficking.
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to question human trafficking?
How did you get that audio?
How, asshole that's going to question?
Yeah. How did you get?
Are you the asshole that's going to question that somebody was human trafficked? How fucking dare you?
Yeah.
And he says, he's like, that's what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I put it at the very end of that clip to show, like, they feed off of people's emotions so that you don't question anything. And it puts people like Mrs. Peeps, for example, in jeopardy, because it's like, here somebody has actually gone through something, and now as Lauren, and this is no offense to Lauren, but Lauren is like, can you tell me exactly what you went through?
Right.
And it fucking sucks. You shouldn't have to do that.
Right.
That's what these people have done.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this whole thing. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what comes in part 2. I don't know. When do you think it's going to come? Is it going to be like a once a week thing? Like what the hell is he even right? Like, what's he doing with his time? That's what I'm wondering here. So it's going to be interesting to follow.
He's been writing this since the beginning of January. Then Jesus, like
it's like Tim needs to get better writers. Like, it's not hard to find a good writer. This writing sucks. I mean, it's really, really bad.
At this point, just get better hair plugs, not better writers. Like, come on, bro.
That's a good point. I don't want to shit on him for that, but like, you're rich. Like,
I will.
You know, like Dr. Leonard, like they all do it. Dave Portnoy, like they all do it. They all do it.
Hell, Matthew McConaughey even got hair plugs. Like, just own it.
Yeah, everybody does it. You know, it's like no big deal. So, but I do have to cut this short, but I do want to thank everybody who joined us tonight. This has been a good chat. And Farron, I just found you this week. I'm a big fan of your work. I love you got a new follower in me. So thank you very much. And thank you.
Myself, Greg, and then also Damian Moore as well.
Yeah, I'm following all you guys. There's a whole new world for me. And thank you, Miss Peeps, for coming on and sharing your story. I'm sure it wasn't
we're
easy.
all unemployed, so feel free to hire us.
There we go. Well, you're very talented, so you shouldn't be unemployed for long. Let me say that.
Oh.
So thank you guys very much for joining my Twitter space tonight. And I'm sure we'll be in touch and following this as it goes along. All right. Thank you guys.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah. Thank everybody for joining me. Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.